The Borough Life Podcast with James
and Rosie.
Hello, welcome back to the Borough Life Podcast. Rosie, it's me and thee again in our usual room in Wigan Town Hall. We're up to episode 6. Who's with us today?
So today we chat to Alanya, who is a registrar here at the council, which means that she does a lot of weddings. And then we chat to Lisa and Diane, who are two mums who sadly lost their sons to suicide, but they've set up a support group here in the borough for others who are affected.
Absolutely, Rosie. So such an important subject there with your interview there with Lisa and Diane. It's really topical this week in particular as we're recording, but those details will become apparent a little bit later on in the episode when you listen to that, Rosie's interview. So one thing before we get cracking with episode 6, just a look back at episode 5. Andy from our Be Well service, who we chatted to about his charity bike cyclathon. I don't know what that probably wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't the official name. I've just made that up on the spot. But he rode from Land's End to John O'Groats for the brick. He's completed that challenge, so we're really proud of him. Please go back to episode 5 and listen if you've not heard that interview, and we'll repost the sponsorship details so you can back Andy and the brick charity, which does amazing work. So, Rosie, shall we get on with it?
Let's go. So we're here today with Alanya. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name's Alanya. I'm currently working in the Registrar's Department at Wigan Council, and I've been there for about 3 years now.
So Alanya, we've invited you in today to feature on the podcast because the council's recently launched a flagship campaign trying to tell people about all the work that the local authority does within our communities. It's called Making a Difference. Rosie, you've been heavily involved in it, and once again I feel like I'm explaining it and taking all the credit for your work. But the reason we've wanted to hear from you is because you've had a really interesting way into the council. So maybe could you give us a little bit of detail about that, about how you joined us?
Yeah, of course. So I started with the council fresh out of college in August 2019. I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in when I left college, and just about the right time a customer service apprenticeship came up with Wigan Council, and I applied for it, and I got my interview a couple of days after I came back from a holiday, and it all just seemed to fit quite well, the timings and everything. And after I attended my interview, I thought straight away that I wanted to work here at the council. So initially I was working in the Life Centre with the welfare team and helping out on the front desks, helping customers with council tax queries, recycling queries, blue badge applications, a whole list of things really. And then when COVID hit in early 2020, I was redeployed into the libraries initially, and helping to clear out all of the libraries whilst the pandemic was happening. The
libraries came a bit of the community hubs anyway, but they became kind of a big part of our emergency response, didn't they, during? So, yeah. Okay.
I mean, now they're so highly valued by the residents. It's a place where people come, it's a warm space for people to use. It's a place where they can socialise, where they get to meet people and have a conversation where if they're living at home, they don't get that, unfortunately. So that was where I was at the start of the pandemic, and then around the June of 2020 I was redeployed into the registrar's team in the Life Centre. So I was put into the main office to deal with all of the wedding inquiries, to rearrange all of the ceremonies for customers, to deal with copy certificate requests, and then from there I just sort of picked things up as I went really. First of all I started to learn birth registrations with the team and got to meet lots of newborn babies once we reopened the doors after the pandemic, and that was lovely. And then I was put on notice of marriage appointments for couples who were coming back finally to us, getting ready to say the vows once again and to do it all with us. And then after that I was actually trained on how to marry people and how to do the ceremony myself. So I did that towards the end of 2020, and I even had like a bride throw bouquets to me. I've had people invite me to the wedding dues afterwards, so it's a really special part of the job doing that.
So I'm glad you came onto this, because I think our ulterior motive for wanting to talk to you is because as Rosie kind of harbours desire to become a wedding celebrant. So perhaps I should pass over to you, Rosie, and you can quiz Alanya on that side of the role.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a personal dream of mine. I can't lie. But yeah, so what is your favourite part of doing those jobs? I can kind of imagine it's like, whether it's births, deaths or marriages really, it feels like an honour to be part of someone's special moment. Is that something you can kind of relate to?
Yeah, and every moment's very unique. Like, no two wedding ceremonies are ever the same with a couple. We have planners that couples submit their requests to us on, so they can put in their own vows, any suggested readings that they have, any sort of quirks that they have for the ceremony. We've had people say like Star Wars vows to each other before in the ceremonies, and I love being able to use them to tailor it to them and make it, you know, a unique experience for them. And they've always said afterwards how it's such a unique ceremony for them, and it makes a lasting impression on them. So that's probably one of my favourite things. The job is making those unique little tiny changes to make it the perfect day for them.
And there's lots of different venues, aren't there, across the borough? So do you have a favourite one to perform ceremonies in? Or?
Oh yeah, my favourite would have to be probably Mains Park Lodge, a really beautiful setting right in the centre of Wigan. It's got big floor-to-ceiling glass windows, so you've got a lovely view out across the park. In summer it's amazing. And then second to that would probably be Lee Town Hall. It's a really wonderful venue. We've got 2 rooms there. The smaller one, which is the Mayor's Parlour, is a brilliant room to do ceremonies in. Really intimate, but with the grand staircase afterwards, it always looks fabulous when couples are taking the photos. Yeah.
I've got so many questions here. Right, I'm gonna have to list through them. One, I want to come back to the Star Wars wedding for one. But I was just going to say, you just reminded me of 2 examples, actually, those 2 venues. So I remember working on our Frost Festival. So I think that would have been back in like 2019. And I remember there was a wedding going on the day at the lodge, and then the couple came out and then kind of like had all the pictures taken with all the festival stuff. That was good, but then that made me think of the couple that we had who got married during the Euros fan zone last year at Lee, and that was brilliant because they came out and there was like thousands of people out there and all cheering them. Yeah, that was fantastic. So my serious question, well, following off what you said, Rosie, you know, these are like landmark moments, aren't they, in people's lives? So even though it sounds like a lot of fun, but do you feel like a bit of pressure, you know, to get it right?
And especially when I first started out, standing there at the front of a room with loads of people in front of you, it is a bit of pressure. But I always remember what my old managers used to say to me was that they don't know what we're doing. They know that, you know, on the day, I'm more worried about themselves. Yeah. And that always made me feel relaxed, and I thought, they're focusing on themselves and they're focusing on each other and the promises that they're making to each other today. And all the little enhancements that I get to make to them is just an added bonus for them. It's all about the love and celebrating them that day. Yeah. But luckily we've got very good scripts that guide you through from start to finish, so there's not really much room for error.
That's a nice answer. So, the Star Wars one, without going into too much detail, so was it just some of the vows were...
It was, the funniest part about it was the date they got married. So, from Star Wars, it's, you know, May the 4th be with you. Yeah. So they got married on May the 4th this year.
I love the commitment.
Yeah.
And they had a bouquet which had lightsabers in it. And they said a few Star Wars quotes that I can't remember now, but they were dead great, and they were dressed similarly to how the Star Wars characters do, and it was a life centre wedding as well, so it was only small and intimate, but it was really good to see. Yeah, we've had a few different themes. I know there was a wedding with a difference last year, so that's when they do a simple legal ceremony at the life centre, but then they do a big celebration ceremony at any venue of their choice. So there was one who did it in the back garden in Wigan, and they did a Peaky Blinders theme. So they dressed the whole place up like 1950s Birmingham. Everyone was there with peaky caps on. I think they even gave the celebrant one to wear while she was performing the ceremony. And so the couples really get into it, into making these unique little changes to the day, making it special for them.
Nice. So Rosie, just throwing it back then to the Making a Difference campaign, you've been heavily involved in the makeup of it. What are the other like kind of key points from it that we're trying to get across to residents, and that they might have seen some of it across the borough in the last few months?
Yeah, so I think it's really just the breadth of council services. I think local authorities are there from sort of birth to death, literally, aren't they? The campaign just seeks to highlight some of those things and kind of show that we're more than just bins and potholes. So one of the final things I just wanted to ask before we let you go, I believe you do British citizenship ceremonies, so that's Can you tell us a bit more about what that means, kind of what happens in the ceremony?
Yeah, of course. So we do a monthly citizenship ceremony here at the Town Hall in the atrium in the last week of the month. To me, the citizenship ceremony is my favourite type of part of the job. We have anywhere up to a couple of dozen citizens that attend at a time, and they come from all over the world, from Ukraine, Africa, Eastern Asia, USA. We have them from all continents. Some of them come from really difficult circumstances, fleeing war, fleeing violence, and when they settle here initially, their lives are quite turbulent. They don't have, a home, they don't have food, they don't have clothing, they come with nothing. So when they're on this citizenship process, it's a lengthy process. They have to live here for at least 5 years to even apply. It's an expensive process, especially if you're doing it as a family. And when they finally get that message through that it's been approved, the joy and the relief that they have is it's immeasurable, really. And then to celebrate it on the day when they come to receive the certificate, it's brilliant, and there's nothing quite like it. So when they come, we have the Mayor who attends, we have a representative from the Deputy Lieutenant's office who come to greet the citizens and to congratulate them as well. And we arrange for photographs with the Mayor and the Deputy Lieutenant for the citizens, and as they present the certificates to them. And I actually remember we did a citizenship, I think last year, of a man who was having his citizenship, and he took a picture with the registrars and the Mayor and the Deputy Lieutenant, and he said afterwards, I'm going to print this off and put it on my fireplace. And his wife chimed in and said, I had my photograph with you last year when I did my citizenship, so we'll put it next to mine as well. And I thought, that's lovely, we've made a difference to a family's life there.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of the ceremonies, and it's just really nice to see how happy everyone is and to welcome them into the borough.
I was going to say, yeah, I've been to a few in my time, and yeah, they're lovely, aren't they? It's just such a nice atmosphere. And actually, where we're recording today, we're like a few metres away from the atrium, aren't we, where they take place. So it's a really lovely thing. Alanya, thanks very much for coming. Do you know what? I've got a final question before we go on. I always think of another question just before we go into the quick fire round. I think it's really interesting when you said that, you didn't really, when you came out of college, you said you weren't sure what you wanted to do. I'm going to get a little bit of a plug in here for kind of councils and going into working for local authorities. I think residents might have a narrow view almost of what services councils provide across the country, and therefore from an employment perspective as well. Do you have any advice for somebody who was in your who was in the same position, maybe coming out of college, or is thinking of their career prospects?
My advice for anyone who was either leaving college or is looking for a career change is to just look at as many opportunities as you can find here, not just at Wigan Council but any local government, because the avenues, the career paths that it can take you down are endless, and everyone here, especially at Wigan Council, is so supportive and so inclusive, and it really is like having a family.
Well, good answer that was. I've got nothing to add to that apart from, right, let's do the quick fire round. Rosie, do you want to start off?
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Pop or rock?
Pop.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Night owl or early bird?
Early bird.
Box set or film?
Box set.
Horror or comedy?
Horror.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Big party or dinner party?
Dinner party.
Thank you, Alanya.
Thank you.
So a big thank you to Alanya. We found that interview really fascinating to do, and we loved the idea of a Star Wars wedding.
Yeah, it's definitely got the conversation flowing in our office, hasn't it, Rosie, about the different types of theme weddings that you could have. Okay, so up next, it's Rosie's interview with Lisa and Diane from SOBS. As we said at the top of the show, really important subject, and it's topical at the moment at the time of recording. So that's coming up after the ad break.
Wigan Borough has so many independent businesses right on your doorstep, waiting for you to explore. These local gems offer the very best in food and drink, fashion, gifts and much more. Celebrate local, love local. Visit wigan.gov.uk/support local.
Having a clear out? Don't forget to check your old gadgets for batteries before you recycle them. Batteries have caused hundreds of fires in bin lorries and at recycling centres across the country because they've been left in discarded electricals. To find out more, visit www.wigan.gov.uk/recycling.
So hi everyone, welcome back to the second part of the episode. I'm here now with Lisa and Diane, who have a really important topic to discuss. So would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hiya, I'm Diane, and I'm here on behalf of the Wigan Group of Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide. I lost my son, Bradley, in 2019. He was only 19 years old when I lost him. At that time, I was very lost, looking for support, and I did attend the most local group, which was the Bolton group.
And I'm Lisa. I too have been impacted by suicide. I lost my son David in 2016, and like Diane, the nearest group to us when we were both bereaved was the Bolton group, and we noticed that there was an obvious gap in the Wigan provision. So when we'd experienced what the Bolton group was like, we wanted to give something back to survivors of bereavement by suicide, or SOBs, and do a group in Wigan.
And so when was that group set up?
So we've just celebrated our first anniversary. So we set up in June last year.
So if someone was to come along to one of those meetings, if they've been impacted by suicide, what does that group kind of look like? What could they expect when they arrive?
Well, it's a very informal group. It is a peer-to-peer support group, so everybody who comes to that group has been impacted by suicide. It could have lost a family member or a friend. We do just sit in a circle. It's very, very informal, friendly. People get to know each other, and it's just a safe, confidential environment where people can express their feelings and emotions, talk about what they're going through, and it's to give people hope as well, alongside the grief as well, as it will sometimes ease, but there will always be grief there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we try to keep it as informal as possible, and we have tea and coffee available for people, and soft drinks and things, so that we make it as friendly and as open as we can. But importantly, it's confidential, so what's said in the group stays in the group.
What kind of impact do you hope that has on individuals who've been affected by suicide?
Well, when you're bereaved by suicide, you enter this kind of abyss of grief that's really difficult to navigate. And when we were both bereaved, there was very little support out there for people. So coming to the group gives people the space and the support to say how they feel and get advice and talk to other people who really and truly understand what it's like to be bereaved by suicide. So the impact that it has is that we're able to support people across Wigan who've been bereaved in whatever way they've been bereaved, whether that's a family member, a friend, a colleague, an acquaintance. It doesn't matter, because suicide impacts massively. It's like a pebble effect, and it impacts everybody in the family, the friendship group, the community around you.
And they also could have been on a very hard journey with someone. They could have been supporting them in the mental health. They could have been supporting them in substance abuse beforehand. So they're processing all that, what they've been before they've actually lost someone as well. They may want to talk about that. They have inquests coming up as well. So we offer a lot of just advise what people have gone through as well. People talk about their own experience, just to give them a better insight as well into what, because an inquest can be looming over them as well, and it's something they have to face. So we just give them some more information regarding that as well.
It sounds like such an important sort of service and group that you're providing, and I think in the context of, there's so many issues affecting people, whether it's the cost of living crisis and other things. So I think well done for what you're doing. It sounds like a lifeline. The reason we've asked you on today is obviously the Baton of Hope relay, which I think some of your colleagues in SOBs are taking part in. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's an event that is the first time it's ever been done, and it's an event that is a big suicide awareness, suicide prevention event. And there's a baton, which is the Baton of Hope, that's physically going to be carried across all the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. It's going to be carried by all sorts of people who've been impacted by suicide, so people who've been bereaved by suicide, maybe even people who've attempted to take their own life as well. But everybody who carries the baton has probably got a story of their own to tell. But as it passes through the different towns and cities that it's going to across the UK, it's hoping to raise awareness and hoping to start the conversations about suicide, because unfortunately suicide is really stigmatised. It's very difficult to talk about, very difficult to ask people those questions, and the Baton of Hope is there to exactly give people just that hope and be able to open those conversations and talk about a very difficult topic.
I think, like I say, it's just about raising awareness as well, and maybe not people may not be frightened then of approaching someone as well if they think they might have been having suicidal thoughts as well. So it's just bringing all them conversations, all them topics, and making people more aware.
Yeah, and I think for example, if someone has been affected by suicide in your life, is there any advice you'd give, for people who've been impacted by suicide bereavement? Is there anything that makes that process easier?
I would say to those people, reach out for support. There is support available through the SOBS group. And there's lots of SOBS groups across the country, and also on the SOBS website as well. There's lots of information for people, but reach out for support, whether that's from a group like ours or whether that's from a friend or a colleague or a family member. But reach out for support and talk to people. And finding people who've been bereaved by suicide can be really comforting, because you kind of validate your feelings, that what you're feeling is normal. It's normal to feel the devastation and the grief that you feel.
If there is someone who's struggling with suicidal thoughts, is there any sort of advice you can give? Or maybe it's you've noticed a change in someone. Is there something that you can advise family members and friends to look out for, any signs?
I suppose the biggest thing would be if you think that somebody may be suicidal, because maybe their behaviour's changed, or maybe they're expressing thoughts of hopelessness, or any suspicion that you have, ask the question and use the word. Are you thinking of suicide, or are you thinking of taking your own life? So ask the question. The question's really important, and it can save somebody's life.
And just try to be open and seeking advice, because with the group as well, I think it's very reassuring for people to come into the group and hear people expressing their emotions, because they do say, I'm glad I've come, because that is how I'm feeling. When we talk to people on the phone as well, they say oh yeah, that is just how I am. I've had them thoughts. Mm-hmm. It's a range of emotions. You can have anger with them for leaving you. You can have a sense of relief as well if you have been on a difficult journey. You do feel guilty because you might not have been able to help them as much as you wanted to, or because you didn't know. So there's lots of different, as well as your grief. It is a different kind of grief. It is hard, and it's a very up and down. You don't ever get over a death like this, but if you do reach out, we can help, and you get that hope as you can learn to live alongside that grief. Mm-hmm. And that's what the group is all about, learning to live alongside that grief.
Just listening to what you're saying, it's everyone's experiences are valid and everyone's emotions are valid, even if they might be different.
That's right. There's a whole range of emotions that people feel, and any emotion that you're feeling is normal for you. It's normal for this type of grief, because you can experience anything, like Diane said, from rage, from anger, to complete devastation, sadness, everything, and everything else in between as well.
And then later on as well, you might only find out what's happened to someone after they've died, so it's processing all that as well. And you do kind of feel hopeless yourself if you've not known about things, what's gone on in their life, because you tried to support them, be there for them, but if you've not known about things, it's a hard thing to process as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to speak about your experiences. And if there is anyone listening to this, we'll obviously put the links in the the description of the podcast. We'll also share a lot of resources from the Baton of Hope and where that's travelled to with Lee residents, Janet and Noel, who are carrying that for us all. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks so much to Lisa and Diane there from SOBS. Rosie, well done on that interview. Such an important topic, and I thought you did a great job.
Thanks. Yeah, I think speaking to Lisa and Diane, I found it really moving personally, and I think it's really, we all have mental health, don't we? And it's just about keeping that conversation open and checking on each other.
And there's so many fantastic organisations across the borough and nationwide that, you know, provide that kind of support. So we'll put some links in the information with this episode. But yeah, that's us nearly there for episode 6. So the big news is we're going to be retiring the quick fire round for the next episode. What a good way to end, I thought, was we might as well do our own, just in case anyone is really interested in whether I prefer tea or coffee or not. So we'll do that then, Rosie. I'll go first. Well, I've just said it, haven't I? Tea or coffee?
Iced coffee.
Yeah, you're trying to get me into iced coffee, aren't you? It's definitely tea for me, and only the version that comes from across the Pennines from us. But other teas are available. Cats or dogs?
Rabbits.
Yeah, rabbits for you. Cats for me. Pop or rock? Rock for me, easy.
I feel like in recent years, pop.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Yeah, salty for me as well. Night owl or early bird?
Night owl.
I think I'm early bird.
Box set or film?
Oh, it's a tough one, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd say box set.
I think I'm a box set as well. Horror or comedy?
Comedy.
Comedy. Winter or summer?
Summer.
Autumn for me. I'm just answering with answers.
Yeah, that's
anything.
being difficult.
I'll go with winter. Big party or dinner party?
I'd go dinner party.
Dinner party. That's a good sign that we got at least a few that were the same there.
So that's us for episode 6, Rosie. We'll be back next month with a new version of the Quickfire questions and a new set of guests. In the meantime, we'll be updating Borough Life Plus. Rosie, if anybody, as ever, wants to go back and see the Borough Life Plus content or any of the previous versions of Borough Life, or go back to our back catalogue of podcasts, where can they find it?
Just head to wigan.gov.uk/Borough Life.
Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you in July.
See you next time.